evening. My name is Vlas. I am from Itty Bitty Apps, and tonight I would like to give you a taste of iOS Mac, or as you probably know it better, Marzipan. I keep calling it Marzipan because that's how you would pronounce that in Russian. Anyway, so many of you probably remember that the rumors of the certain technology that allows iOS apps to run on the Mac have started back in December. And obviously that generated some talk. And you know, people, of course, had feelings about it. Fast forward to April, when a different rumor has surfaced about a cross-platform declarative UI framework. And apparently Marzipan was not a real thing, but, well, again, rumors. But finally, we went to dub, and at the very end of the presentation about Mojave, the new version of macOS, Craig Federighi asked the question that was on everyone's mind, whether they were merging iOS and macOS. And I suppose the answer that we were given was a definite kinda. Well, just kidding. But, well, what we were given as a sneak peek into what they're working on and what they were working on and still are, is a technology that essentially allows you to take your iOS app, make just a few changes to its source code, compile to on an architecture that you're already compiling for, specifically simulator, that's x86-64, and use UIKit as you were, maybe with some additions, and make it work on the Mac and link to a certain version of UIKit. And the way they make it work is by providing all sorts of mapping technology, mapping techniques that bridge the AppKit experience with the UIKit experience, and thus make the whole thing seamless. And I actually like this slide because it goes into quite some detail about what exactly they're doing. And if you go through this whole list and then actually look into the implementation, there's a lot of matching things. However, we were told that us, third-party developers, will only be able to use that in 2019, and that's fair enough. And it's pretty obvious why they would announce it now, because, well, they're shipping apps with macOS Mojave that use this technology, and obviously people would still pick it apart, so people would still know about it. But, you know, I got interested, obviously, what they're doing internally, and given that the apps themselves are UIKit apps, iOS apps, certainly there was something interesting going on inside that we could reveal, I suppose. So, disclaimer, obviously, the stuff I'm going to talk about further is not official information. That's just what I've been able to pick apart. So take that with a grain of salt. And obviously, because the framework itself is still work in progress, it doesn't reflect really what we are going to see in a year. So first, a little bit about how an iOS app, well, sorry, a UIKit app, I'm probably should call it that, or rather iOS Mac app, because that's the internal name that's used in a few places. I think the platform is what they're calling iOS Mac, while Marzipan is actually the code name. I'll show that a bit later. So when you start an iOS Mac app, like Stocks, for example, this app, of course, links against multiple frameworks, including some of the common ones, some that are common with Mac OS apps. Some are specific to iOS apps. But something special about iOS Mac apps is that they are protected with special entitlements that doesn't allow just anyone to start using this technology today. And of course, with all the code signing, the hardened runtime, with system integrity protection and mobile file system integrity, with all these systems, you cannot really just start and hack inside it without actually disabling all these things. And of course, the code signing with entitlements makes sure that it will be very hard, even though people try, to start using that yourself. In terms of the frameworks and libraries that iOS apps usually use, they actually sit in this new folder called iOS support, or the /system/iOS support. And the other ones are still in their usual system library frameworks and private frameworks directory. However, two special frameworks that any iOS Mac app needs to link against are these two: UIKit System App Services and UIKit Host App Services. The first one provides an XPC connection to UIKit System App Process. Now that is actually a launch agent. It's launched by the system on demand if you're running any iOS Mac app, and it's shared. It's shared among all iOS Mac apps running on the system. Of course, the system can also kill it if no other iOS Mac apps are running, and maybe the system is low on memory. And essentially, what it provides is something similar to what the frontboard services on iOS, tvOS, and watchOS provides, and that's it's slightly different, but things like remote notifications, I think that's push notifications essentially, and some connection to the Windows server is what this app provides to all the services, to all the iOS Mac apps. The other thing is what I'm going to focus next, and that's UIKit Host App. That is a process that's launched per iOS Mac app, and that is essentially the other side of the bridge. That's the macOS surface of your UIKit app, essentially. And again, for communicating between these, between the framework that's inside the app and the system apps, XPC is used with this interesting new framework called UIKit. I think ROC stands for Remote Object Connection or Remote Object Communication, and that seems to be a replacement to the old and kind of self-deprecated technology called Distant Objects, I believe. But, well, again, it's internal, obviously. And so UIKit Host App is kind of special. The app is bootstrapped immediately when the iOS Mac app is launched. And what this thing does immediately is it actually starts pretending that it's the app you've launched. It inherits the icon, the name, even the bundle path. It even pretends that it even allows accessing user defaults of your original app. So it does lots of magic even from the beginning. And if you, for example, try to look at Activity Monitor while an iOS Mac app is running, it would be kind of deceiving because you would see two apps with the same name, but only one of them will have an icon. The thing is, the one that has an icon is the UIKit Host app. The other one without an icon is the UIKit app. You can see that the CPU time actually kind of gives it away, and you can see from process IDs which process launched first and which one was second. And itself, UIKit Host app looks pretty simple. Here, that's the view debugger attached to UIKit Host app. It's a Swift app. It has one storyboard, a view controller, and obviously a toolbar, and provides the menus and all that. And the biggest part of it, really, from the UI perspective, is the view that has a layer host in it. So what it does, really, yes, as I said, it impersonates the original app that you launched. It displays UIKit content via layer hosting. And as you have heard from the keynote and State of the Union, it provides the event mapping. It passes all the mouse or trackpad events as human interface device events to UIKit, including things like even quick look and drag and drop interactions. It proxies a lot of things like drop targets, text areas, accessibility areas, which is pretty important. And it deals with all the AppKit specific and Mac-like behaviors like context menus, pageboard sharing, opening URL in both ways. So if, for example, if you try to open URL from inside the UIKit app, Safari launches. Window resizing, of course, even size classes, and automatic system appearance is also pretty cool. I'm gonna cover that in just a moment. On the other side of this fence, of this bridge, is UIKit Core. Now, that's essentially UIKit. For some reason, they renamed it, and now UIKit Core is a private framework, but UIKit essentially just is now a very thin interface to UIKit Core. And on macOS specifically, it provides an interface and observation mechanism to UIKit host. And it provides quite a few interesting classes. All of them, of course, are starting with @_, like UI menu bar controller, UI menu bar item, UI window toolbar item, and all the different subclasses. And notable one of them is UI window toolbar share item, which you have seen in a few apps like news and stocks. UI touch bar controller, UI touch bar item, and subclasses. All of these essentially allow the UIKit app to control the Mac behavior, the AppKit behavior. And of course, all these are available only to the Mac version of UIKit. They are not there on your iOS devices. Two interesting ones are automatic focus ring and scroller implementation. I'm going to show that in just a moment. And the other interesting bit is how when you, for example, present an alert or action sheet or an activity view, UIKit Core essentially interposes that and sends the request off to the host app to present the Mac experience. Automatic system appearance is pretty interesting. You might have seen in the UIKit headers on iOS 12 that the dark appearance have appeared. I guess one of the reasons for that was that, yes, on macOS, the macOS appearance needs to be automatically adopted by the UIKit app, and that's what's happening. A few system colors and scrollers, the focus ring color, apparently some tab bar colors, and the appearance of table views with sidebar style, they all adapt to the current mode. Other things that UIKit Core needs to deal with is adopting to key or non-key appearance of the window. Live resizing, of course. There's this interesting class called UI Druid source connection, UI Druid destination connection. I suppose the DR means drag and drop, right? And finally, the screen scale. You might have seen that the UIKit app is actually scaled down to present the controls, I suppose, in a more comfortable way. It's actually hard-coded at 0.77 for reasons. And one notable omission in UIKit Core macOS is UI WebView. It's deprecated in iOS 12, and it's simply not there on macOS. I suppose for a good reason. Now, what I wanted to show is a bit more about the automatic focus ring and scrollers. So these two things, which we know about from macOS, like when you start editing a text view and it displays a blue, well, or maybe differently colored ring around the text field, and also a differently rendered scrolling indicators, they are also inside UIKit, because obviously otherwise it would kind of look weird when they're in the host. They might get out of sync. And so, yeah, there are special classes inside UIKit Core that deal specifically with rendering those. Like this. They're actually layers for some reason, but, well, I'm sure for a good reason. So overall, yeah, there's lots and lots of magic going on there. And it's kind of fascinating in a way, but also kind of freaky that this whole mechanism had to go, well, the developers of that had to go into such lengths and such pains to mimic essentially all these behaviors and bridge all those. And I suppose they know what they're doing because, well, they are the platform owners, so they know what behaviors exactly to bridge. And of course, we'll know more in years to come. Now, really, what I wanted to finish with is actually a little demo. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch, let's say, stocks. So of course, as I mentioned, in order to do anything to attach a debugger to any iOS Mac app, actually any Mac app these days as well, to inject things into them, to do all the stuff, you need to disable system integrity protection, MFI, library validation. I'm not going to show how to do that. You can Google it up because it's not a recommended thing to do, especially on your day-to-day computer. So I'm just going to quickly show how that looks like. Now, one thing I forgot about is that I need an internet connection to do that. Sorry?
What's the Apple stock outcome?
Oh, that's just stocks.
There is Wi-Fi here. Does it assume that it's an iPad version?
Yes, it does. Just because.
iPad simulator you said, right?
Sorry?
Is the iPad simulator you said it was?
Stocks, no, it's not an iPad simulator. I'm just gonna connect it to my personal hotspot because that probably should be quicker. Oh, sorry. It's connected to AirPlay.
It should have, if it's on the Wi-Fi, it should have the internet.
You might need to just go through Facebook's.
Oh, no, that's all right. It's, again, running a beta OS, so things can go wrong.
Stay on the Wi-Fi though, so you don't lose everything.
Guessed?
No, stay on it. Just open a browser and do the crappy authentication.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm not on Wi-Fi. Okay.
Don't you ever if you're not on Wi-Fi.
Okay. I'm gonna skip that part. Instead, no. Instead, I'm gonna use an app that doesn't require internet connection, which is voice memos. So let's record something. Let's pause that, and let's say done. Okay. So now I'm just gonna connect my debugger to it. I think it's called voice something. Okay, maybe it's called something else. That's fine. I can just try and create some activity here. It's called voice memos. Okay, there you go. There you go, voice memos. Of course, it asks for my password to control another process. And in a few seconds, it's, okay, there you go. It has attached. First thing I want to actually show is, oops, I've just detached, is the UIKit host app. This one actually is for stocks because I didn't look what I'm clicking. And if I just use view debugger, here it is. So we got a view controller here, scene view controller, some views in here, input view, and here the special view, scene view.
Can you make it bigger?
I don't think so. Maybe like this. So this layer, I will, oops. Okay, let's turn the presentation mode on. And so if I print this layer, you can see how, the sub-layers here, one of them is a CA layer host. So that's the layer that proxies UIKit content, and you can see how the transform is 77% scale. Okay, so that's easy. Now, let's do the same thing with the UIKit app. Now here I will need to paste, sorry? Wow, okay. I'm just gonna print some commands. Oh no. All right. Now the thing is, in the first beta it worked perfectly. Unfortunately, in the later beta, they changed something in the behavior of DYLDs, so I had to go through a few more hoops to make reveal work. For some reason, the load methods are not called on the thing, but you know. And in just a few seconds, we'll have a thing.
Yay!
All right. So here's our app. You can see, interestingly, that the table view, even though in the on the Mac app you see there it has a vibrant behavior, on the UIKit site, sorry, I suppose it probably provides some color magic that gets bridged into the right appearance. And so if I look here in this scroller imp container view and enable hidden views, you can see the scrollers. Obviously, they're hidden right now. What else? Focus ring, right? There you go. There's a search bar. You can, by the way, for now at least, it's not difficult to poke holes in this thing. So you can maybe if you say hide the toolbar, then put it into full screen, something is maybe broken and you put it back and now you, yeah. But that's fine, you know, one thing at a time. Yeah. So if I now refresh this and open the search bar, settable intrinsic size view, well that's gonna be handy for everyone, right? Ah, that's not the right thing. I was looking for a search bar right here. Ah, okay. I need to refresh using holding commands so it doesn't lose key state. And there it is, our automatic focus ring. What else to show? It's.
I was just going to ask, is the US screen mapped to the window itself?
I'm not sure. It's possible. Oh, it's possible that what is being hosted is the window, because what I remember from reverse engineering this thing is that there is like a single special, like a Mac window that it puts the content in, I suppose. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. What I do see here is that the screen size is actually, where do we put this information? Ah, that's a window. The screen size is kind of large. It's 1920 by 1980. That's the size of my real screen, so I suppose that's what it gives me. But the window itself is smaller. So I can say hide that, and so it becomes obvious. Of course, we visualize the information that we know about, so of course, for the window coordinate system, it makes more sense. What else? A bunch of layers going on here in voice recording, for example, but not sure if it's going to be very interesting to pull these apart. I wanted to show stocks, of course, but yeah, no internet connection. Wah, wah. Oh, wait. I have a fallback. I have some snapshots. We'll need the latest one.
Can you just repeat the question when you get that?
Sorry?
Just repeat the question when you get that.
Oh, sure. The question was whether I use the normal default version of Reveal to do that, and the answer is the latest one, because there was one change I needed to do in order to make the Reveal load command work. It was just around making sure that it recognizes the iOS Mac platform. Here, I think the only funny thing I could show with this snapshot of news is that, I don't know if you know, but many of these text labels are actually images. Optimization, right?
That's one way to get around it, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, performance.
Well, text is hard, man.
Yeah, of course. And layout is also hard, by the way. Layout is, oh, they've improved that. Anyway, if you would like me to show you something else or you have some questions, go ahead. No one?
So that's
Yeah, we're right.
Hang on, Matt.
Okay, so considering that it's next year that we'll hopefully get a hold of all of this, what sort of shape and form do you think it will take? Is it going to be very similar to what you've found, or will there be, do you think, some major differences?
Okay, well, I obviously don't know, but considering the amount of effort that has been put into implementing it the way it is now, I would think that it would be a version of that, but obviously I cannot tell. If they only have 1 year, in fact, to finish this off, maybe to make the API nicer, to bridge all the remaining events and behaviors, yeah, I don't think they would go for a completely new implementation at this point. But once again, that's just my conjecture.
One of the things I remember Air Force One talking about at the keynote was this idea when they showed it in the diagram you had at the beginning of this unification of a low-level
Yep.
APIs. And he did kind of make a bit of a point about that. With like they spent not only are they bringing UIKit to Mac, but they're also trying to unify all the
I forgot to mention that.
layers below UIKit. Have you seen any evidence of that in either UIKit core or in anything you've done in the last week or two? Because I know there are parts of those APIs that are lacking on iOS versus the Mac.
And vice versa. Like
And vice versa, yeah.
some of the drawing util on UIKit is so much better than.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more like the lower core animation, core graphics, stuff like that. There are differences between the platforms.
I think at this point, what I have seen is that some of the APIs have been cleaned up a little bit, but that's obviously is a continuing effort on their side. The other thing I believe they did is they exposed a little bit more APIs from other frameworks, not UIKit obviously, that are available on one platform to another platform. I think that's in AV Foundation from my digging through the API diffs. One interesting thing I've noticed in UIKit specifically is, okay, two things. One thing is that the scroll views, for example, now have two different implementations of scrolling dynamics. So obviously when you're running on iOS, it has one sort of behaviors for deceleration and bouncing. And if you're running iOS Mac, then it's a different implementation with a bit different dynamics. The other thing I've noticed is that if you're familiar with implementation of auto layout and how UIKit interfaces with the auto layout engine, every view has, every view participating in auto layout has so-called variables, like for example, min x, min y, width, height. For scroll views, they also have content width, content height, and what I've seen is that interestingly, now there are also content offset X and content offset Y. I suppose that could be useful to display those scrollers or somehow maybe implement pinned views in scroll views, which I think is possible in NS scroll view in some form. NS scroll view is obviously much different because it has the clipping view, a bunch of containers. So maybe that's one of the ways they are exposing that functionality and making it easier. But aside from that, can't really remember anything specific.
Hang on.
Being the lazy dev that I am, all I want to know is, do I have to do any extra work to make my app work on Mac?
This year, you cannot do anything, obviously. And next year, we'll see. But from what I've heard, from what I've seen, and from I think their promise really is that you take your source code and if you don't want to implement any extra Mac-like controls like toolbars and menu commands or touch bar controls, I think it's supposed to compile as is, because unless of course you're using UI WebView still, and you probably shouldn't even if you're just running on your iOS. But I think really the point there is it's probably better to go an extra mile and expose, well, it will be better again in a year, to go an extra mile and expose a little bit of more Mac specific controls, unless you want your app to look like, I don't know, a web wrapper, but with obviously native code running and native controls.
So is there any evidence at all that Apple, that they're going to do any kind of mapping from iOS behaviors, so maybe navbar buttons to the Mac behavior, like, you know, toolbar buttons?
I have seen evidence of tab bar appearance potentially being different, but unfortunately I haven't been able to properly run Home app, which should have it. Aside from that, I don't think so. If you run and use a stocks on Mojave and like open an article, the navigation bar will appear and it will just look like a navigation controller. Or for example, if I open the stocks app, you can see this table of stocks here, and I open the list. You can see this is a modal appearing inside a split, and you can see the navigation bar on top, and you can see a very specifically iOS behaviors here. Maybe that's a temporary solution, but from what I understand, there is not much going on there. Like really the scrollers, the adaptive behavior of scrolling, and the automatic focus ring that tries really hard to mimic the native AppKit focus ring, but sometimes you can see the difference. Aside from that, I don't think so. So you would need to, if I understand correctly, at this point you would need to add a little bit of extra code to plug into native controls. But once again, maybe they'll change something in a year.
So I've got two questions that are kind of related. The first is, let's say your app, for example, uses iOS-specific operations like, you know, swiping or two fingers tapping and stuff like that. Is there anything from you peeking inside using Reveal that reveals what they're potentially doing to try and make it work? And question number two is, once you do make this Mac app, is intended purpose, I mean, is the intention that you put it on the Mac App Store, or can you distribute it for downloading on the internet?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll answer the second question first because it should be quicker. The answer is I don't know. I don't think we have had any announcements about that just yet. I think there were some podcasts that referenced the same question. I mean, obviously, I would hope that we could distribute on outside of App Store, but I wouldn't hold my breath, to be honest. Answering the first question, I actually totally forgot to look into any custom gesture recognizers that may be present inside a running iOS Mac app, but the event mapping that is referenced actually in the has been referenced in Keynote and State of the Union. It's actually pretty full on. It will map the two-finger trackpad movement or the scroll wheel gesture to an actual tap and drag. It will map, I think, double clicking to a long tapping. I think it also maps right clicking to something. So I think they've gone through these in the presentation. Obviously, you could also try to dig into specific gestures. I don't remember anything about custom gestures though. It's quite possible that if you have any custom gesture recognizers or gestures you're implementing with multi-touch using, say, touch begin or touch end, that may not work as good, possibly. So standard gestures, standard interactions should work well. Standard gesture recognizers should, I think, also work well. Especially because there are many overlapping gestures that exist as a UI gesture recognizer API versus an S gesture recognizer API. For example, pinch and rotate gestures, they exist on the trackpad as well. So these should map well. But custom ones, not sure.
You said trackpad. What if you don't have a trackpad? Does it map anything?
Well, bad chance. Well, maybe theoretically, in a year we will see some sort of API that will allow us to detect that modifier keys are held, like Command, Option, Shift, and Control, so that we could then map these interactions to our custom gestures, but haven't seen that in particular yet.
So this might be a stupid question, but considering at a simplified level that UIKit is a high-level abstraction on top of core animation and the hit system, why do Marzipan apps have to be hosted in a separate process? Why can't they just be hosted in the same process as a Mac app with AppKit and share the same address space and just be abstracting the Mac event model and all of that? Why does it need to be hosted in a separate process? Why do you think they went that way rather than just change a bit the abstraction layer and just host it in an AppKit app, if that makes sense?
Well, I think this could be one of the things that change in the next year, but just subjectively, I would think that's because even though UIKit is a wrapper on top of core animation and other frameworks, it's a pretty thick wrapper. Like, it has a lot of things, both just internally and from what we have, to implement all the features that have appeared since iOS 2, essentially. And maybe trying to replicate them all would be difficult? I'm not sure. What else? Yeah, I think you have an interesting point in terms of why are they hosted. Maybe just because some of the frameworks that you would, they're talking obviously about how they try to converge the frameworks, but that's not completely there yet. And so some of the frameworks that an iOS Mac app is linking against, they're in that iOS support library. And maybe they just have slightly different behavior from what you would have if you link directly to the Mac version of that. So obviously, if trying to have the same address space might be problematic.
Yeah, my conjecture for why it's a host app is I think the host app probably was born of the simulator.
Sorry, what was? It was what?
It was probably born of the simulator.
Oh, sure.
As in, like, the simulator is the host app for iOS app already.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
It's mapping a variety of this sort of thing in already. So I think they're just taking the architecture of the simulator and modifying it.
And given that I'm pretty sure that the Mac side of things has been worked on at least partially by people responsible for the simulator, that makes sense. Anyone else?
So, last two questions. Pete has chimed in from London on Skype.
Hey, Pete.
Hey, Pete. He asked, so given how this is built, it seems obvious that the intention is that you'll either write 100% UIKit core app, 100% AppKit, but you won't mix the two. Does that match what you think?
Given that UIKit host app is the AppKit part of this bridge, and that when you're launching a UIKit app, an iOS Mac app, you don't have direct access to AppKit. In fact, if you try to link AppKit, I'm pretty sure the system will reject that because it's in the blacklist. Yes, I believe that I don't think you can really mix and match these. You can only have one or another, but that's just my subjective, that's just what I think at this point.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Thank you.